Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings, and this is Ben and Barry on football.
Hello out there. This is your co-host. I'm Ben Dickerson, lover of fantasy football and especially of, in fact, all football, but especially the NFL, which we are waiting for with bated breath.
Yeah. We had this little bit of a conversation. We'll talk a little bit about the dilemma of the fantasy players. You guys have guess who don't have a dilemma?
Mad players. Mad players that have no dilemma at all. You can go on and play Madden anytime you want to.
New games coming out. All the new players will be on it. A new platform, from what I understand. We'll talk a little bit about that during the show. But I went back and looked at our YouTube page, Ben, and it was May the last time we did a show.
May?
End of May. I didn't see anything for June.
March, April, May. Oh, okay. That's even more recent than I thought, actually.
And unless they were just clips that I put up in May, but no, it was in May. And we were like trying to figure out what was going on. Mainly, the thing was going on was COVID, and then the George Floyd thing hit, and so it's been a lot going on in the United States and across the world. But before we get started, let me say to you, Happy Juneteenth Day.
Thank you very much. Happy Juneteenth Day to you also. Juneteenth, which I just found out, and we're learning so much darn near daily with the COVID thing and people being home and having time to Google things and research things and share information. There's always something to learn, and I hope that people out there that have young children are trying to give them some of this history and some of this information that they may not get when school starts back up again and would not have gotten if school had never stopped. So this COVID thing is a blessing and a curse because folks are getting a lot of education. But as far as Juneteenth is concerned, I just found out today that nobody actually knew anything about Juneteenth until President Trump made it famous.
Yeah, according to him. According to him, nobody knew anything until he made it famous. And that is just indicative of what we're dealing with this administration. So, okay. Let's go to our first subject matter that we're going to talk about. And I always like to kick it off with something that's a little bit fun. And Ben, what's more fun than making fun of Kirk Cousins?
What's more fun to you than making fun of Kirk Cousins? That's how you want to phrase that.
Well, I've been an admirer of him financially, if not on necessarily the football field. And this article is about Kirk Cousins telling Dak Prescott, the franchise tag can be your friend. Don't fear the franchise tag, Dak. Take the money and keep on playing. So what do you think about that?
What I think about that is that I believe that Kirk Cousins is telling Dak something that he may want to consider. I'm not going to say, yes, indeed, that is a fact, but it is something to consider. It can work out for you. It can be your friend. Let's remember that when a team decides to franchise tag you, I believe they have to take an average of the top five, the top paid 5 players at your position. And if you, in fact, do that, And you have a guy like Kirk Cousins in that top 5 with his monstrous contract, along with who's the highest paid, maybe a Russell Wilson. That drives that average up pretty well. You're going to be pretty well compensated. And if, in fact, he does sign that tag and allows the Cowboys to put that on him, or let's put it this way. It's not just something that Dak has to consider. It's also something that the Cowboys have to consider. If they franchise tag him, he's going to make a nice salary for that 1 year. If they have to tag him again because of circumstances with their team, or they had to pay this guy, they want to keep that guy, he could end up doing really, really well. This may not be something that the Cowboys want to do. And I'm sure they're considering that. I don't think that they're simply saying, the heck with you and these contract negotiations. We're going to tag you, and you're going to sign it before the deadline, which is July 15th, I think. And that's the end of it. I do not think that's the case. I believe that the Cowboys do want to sign him, and they're weighing their options as to what will work out best for them.
I pulled up something real quick. I'm gonna just read it and hopefully hope that this is correct. But it says players can be tagged in 2 consecutive years, but it's costly. It says
exactly, it's costly.
It says the team must pay 120% of the player's previous salary, and if it's 3 straight years, 144% of his previous salary.
Yes.
So he's going to get a 20% bump, and then a 40% bump. Wow.
Let's put it this way. What's the last you heard that Dak is supposedly asking for? I know there's something going on between a 4-year deal and a 5-year deal. But as far as his yearly salary, minus, we're not going to talk about guaranteed money or anything like that. Just what he wants to make per season. I kind of thought I heard he was pushing for 35 or 36 million a year, somewhere along those lines. So if that's the case, let me just read this. It says, if Dak followed the same path, meaning the path of Kirk Cousins, and accepted the franchise tags, he'd get the guaranteed $31.409 million for 2020. And should he be tagged again in 2021, the CBA dictates that a twice tagged player receive 120% bump, meaning Prescott's second tag would pay him $37.7 million. And I will paraphrase the next statement. I don't think the Cowboys want to do that.
The only part about that they may want to do that I can think of is not commit to additional years. I don't know if they're thinking like Tom Brady's going to leave the Bucs next year and it's going to be able to get Tom Brady, or who they're going to get that's so much better than Dak. But it doesn't seem like they want to commit anything to Dak. So, in terms of additional years.
I agree. I think the amount of, or the extent of the deal, the amount of years that they want to sign him for is a big sticking point, probably a bigger sticking point than most people believe. I think most people believe it's all about the money, but I don't think that's the case. But then they contradict themselves by saying, Dak is our guy. He's our quarterback now and our quarterback in the future. We love Dak. We don't need anybody else. He's our guy. He's going to take us for years. They keep saying that, okay, but they don't want to sign him. They want to sign him for, somebody wants 5 years and somebody wants 4. I believe Dak is trying to get a 4-year deal. I could be wrong. I may have to look this up. And I believe the reason he wants to do that is because he wants the deal to end around the time when he knows he can make a big splash becoming a free agent and really maximize his monetary fortunes. Okay, he'll be in his prime. He will be betting on himself that he gets better, that they make playoffs, that they win playoff games, maybe even win a Super Bowl within that 4 years. And then he's going to try to really cash in, where the Cowboys may want to sign him for a longer term deal and kind of just string him out before he's free to gash him for more money.
We actually talked about the new additional money sources that were going to come into the NFL.
Absolutely. If we know about it, they know about it.
Yeah. So we did talk about that. It looks as if a franchise tag on a 1-year basis is going to pay Dak $31.4 million, according to a report on ESPN. So, I know that's not what he wants. That's, but I'm not sure what he wants, and I don't think anybody really knows that what he wants seems to be held in close secrecy. So, we'll have to see from there. But I'm not sure how much they want him and how much they are really willing to commit money-wise and or year-wise. Okay, before we go any further, you'll probably notice in the background, you'll see 3 jerseys hanging up, one of which has my last name, but that's not for me. I decided to display some of my son's jerseys. And so let me just start. I'm going to move to there we go. Just try to get out the way. So the first one you'll see is his Oak Lane jersey. That's the Little League. He started playing with the 55-pound group and played all the way through and then went on to high school. In high school, he went to Roxborough High. That is on the blue one with his last name here, number 22. That was the number that he played under at Roxborough High School. And as a result of that, he was on the Philadelphia City All-Star team. That's his jersey. It's one of the few green Eagle-type jerseys I allow in my house. I'm just joking. Just joking.
He's not joking.
Just joking. But anyway, he had a pretty illustrious career. Went on to Kutztown College and played a little bit there. But he's with you now. And did talk to him a little bit about you guys had a great practice and some of the things you guys are doing. And I understand that the Philly Bowl is going to be in August. So there'll be like the tournament thing going on here. And he seems to be really stoked about playing tournament ball with the Noles.
Yeah, just real quick, and I don't really want to get into this because there's been some controversy within the league in reference to tournaments and tournament wins and things like that. But the Noles are the first PTTFL team to ever play in a national invitational tournament of any type. The Noles are the first team to actually win any national invitational tournaments. In fact, we've won several, either as the Philly Noles or as the Road Warriors. And then we kind of fell off. Some of the older guys retired, brought in some new guys, started kind of rebuilding the team. And the tournament experience type guys kind of stopped playing. So we now have the team back to the Ohio back in, when was that? Early March, before the pandemic hit. And I thought the guys did really well. We didn't win, but I thought they did well considering that the majority of the team, that was their first time ever playing out of town, ever playing more than one game in one day. And, hitting the road, sitting up in the hotel, having dinner together, hanging out, that kind of thing. So all of that comes into play when you're talking about playing in tournaments, especially out of town. And these are all things that they need to kind of get a taste of so that they can, we have nowhere to go but up at this point. So I'm happy about that.
Okay, all right. So that's the PTTFL, and it's flag football. Ben coaches. My son Chris plays, and you guys are looking to start your season when? When's that?
We do not have an official date yet. I'm hoping, I just heard something on the radio today. I think the mayor said something about we're still in the yellow phase. There haven't been a large number of new COVID cases, and that we expect to go green, I think, by the end of this month. For some reason, the June 25th kind of sits in my mind. So I'm thinking somewhere along the line of being in a nice, long yellow phase or pre-green phase, they'll start to allow larger groups to congregate at recreation centers. That's all we need. All we need is the okay to have team and league play at recreation centers, and we're back.
I think that the next phase, because we are where we are, is where I'm optimistic that we will be on schedule. However, when I look around the United States at the COVID cases that are spiking, especially along the southern border, Florida, along the Gulf Coast, Texas, and
Texas got hit with a big spike.
Arizona and all of them. So as long as they keep that stuff over there, you might get your green phase and have to go ahead. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope that that we don't have that the potential super spreader event that's about to happen in Tulsa is not actually a super spreader event, that it works out for everybody. So, okay. So Ben, and it's funny, we're going through our little machinations with the whole Zoom thing, but I still think we do better than the people on TV, because they're still talking over each other.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes I get the feeling that they can't see each other, and I can't imagine why they wouldn't be able to see each other.
I think you're right. I actually think that you're right in some cases. All right, here we go. Say his name.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Tua Tagovailoa. And the Dolphins, I posted this on May 12th, agreed to terms with a contract averaging $7.5 million per year, not including the fifth-year option. So that's, and he's already committed like some money to the quest for equality. I don't know if he sent it to Black Lives Matter or something like that. But no, you know what he did? I think he set up a trust, an educational trust in his homeland. So I think that's what he actually did.
Okay,
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was real good.
Cool.
That was real good. Joe Burrow hasn't seen a contract yet, correct?
As far as I know, I haven't heard anything about Joe Burrow signing yet. I don't think it'll be long. I'm assuming that they're negotiating as we speak. I mean, he was the number one pick overall. So, I mean, the guy's got to, he wants to be compensated, I'm sure. If Tua is getting 7.5 per year for his first 4 years, not including his fifth-year option, then the Dolphins would do – if he can kind of bring the Dolphins back to relevance, and there's a possibility he may or may not play his first year. Let's face it, he's playing behind Ryan Fitzpatrick and Fitzpatrick is still a viable NFL quarterback. But if Fitzpatrick is having a tough time or gets injured, they're going to put Tua in there. And if he can stay healthy and they can keep him upright, and he is the real deal, as a lot of people think he is, within that first 4 years, for $7.5 million for him to bring the Dolphins back to relevance would be a really big deal for the city of Miami.
Yeah, he's getting some big numbers being thrown his way, but nothing actually has been done in terms of an actual signing at this particular point. So, okay.
Who, Burrow?
Yes, Mr. Burrow.
Okay.
All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, Ben. So next up, this is an interesting post that we put up because we're not talking about any old body here. We're talking about Randy Moss's son, Thaddeus Moss, who is now a tight end with the Redskins, who says not being picked in the NFL draft was a slap in the face. So I guess he came in as a undrafted free agent. Was that UDFA?
Yes. Undrafted free agent for the son of an all-time great and Hall of Famer like Randy Moss, who played, started, and contributed, I'm not going to say mightily, but contributed nonetheless to the national champion LSU Tigers, to not be drafted at all, I believe is a slap in the face. I agree that is a slap in the face. There have been guys that have been drafted on legacy alone. So, and this guy played for the #1 college in the country and was the starting tight end on that team and played well. I can't remember his combine numbers, but it's not like he stunk it up. I mean, the kid can play. That's kind of crazy to me. I don't understand it. But I'm glad that he did get picked up, and he will now come in with a bigger chip on his shoulder than his father did, and we'll see what happens. It's a shame that he's on a team like Washington, but with all the problems they've had keeping a tight end on the team that could stay healthy, he's got a good chance to play right away. So he'll have an opportunity to prove his worth.
Well, one of the reasons you didn't see him at his numbers, according to this report, he missed it due to a Jones fracture in his foot.
Okay, so he wasn't at the combine.
He wasn't at the combine.
Okay, that's great. That's wonderful.
Which would also legitimize maybe the fact that he didn't get drafted a little bit.
No.
Did you watch him in college?
Yes, he played for LSU. They were on every week.
Oh, that's right. He's an LSU guy.
Joe Burrow was his quarterback.
6'3", 240. May not be regarded as the top tight end in this class, but his athleticism, as well as his name and pedigree, will draw a lot of attention. He came on as the season drew to a close, caught a total of 9 passes for 135 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2 playoff games.
Not bad for primetime games. Like I said, he wasn't a main focus of their offense. Okay, the running back, Hilaire, was a main focus, and then they had all those great wideouts. So, you know, I think he's a good blocking tight end, and he obviously can run, and he obviously can catch, but he wasn't a focal point of the offense. They didn't go to the tight end a lot. Perhaps he didn't have enough impressive film for NFL teams to think they wanted to use a draft pick on him. And that's quite possible. Who knows if he'll even be successful or not. I'm just glad that somebody saw fit to pick him up as a free agent. And now, like I said, he'll come in with that big Moss chip on his shoulder, like his dad did, and he'll have the opportunity to prove himself. And he's on a team where he may get the opportunity to prove himself right away.
And let me correct myself, because he is with, as we say, the Washington team that needs to change their name. We lost a pioneer in the NFL announcing annals with the loss of Phyllis George.
Oh, Phyllis George. I liked Phyllis George. She
That's
was
what I
one of
was-
the first females to really become a big-time sports co-host. And she was fairly knowledgeable. I'm not going to say she was as knowledgeable as some of the females that we have working sports now. She's nowhere near them as far as football knowledge is concerned. But she was entertaining. The players seemed to like her. They enjoyed their interviews with her. And, you know, she wasn't known for asking tough questions or anything, but she paved the way. She paved the way.
Yeah, you know, we just wanted to acknowledge her on our page, and as a pioneer, someone who was obviously, you know, a football fan. And the NFL decided, you know, hey, we need to, you know, bring some women in, and they began to move things around a little bit. So awesome. So Ben, next up, the Eagles. Apparently, the Eagles are among NFL teams building a roster of hybrid running backs and receivers. And it almost sounds like my 49ers, what I think they must be trying to do a little bit, where they just got so many people running in so many different directions that the defense is going to be like, we don't know who's a receiver, who's a back, who's doing what. But I also saw an article that ranked the Eagles running backs like 22nd, something like that in the league, not getting a lot of respect as running backs. So, you know, right now they've got Miles Sanders. He looks like he's the main starter. They brought back Corey Clement. He's still there. They still have what's the name of the young man who I called he was the clone?
Boston Scott.
Boston Scott, yeah, still have Boston Scott. What do you think about the Eagles running backs?
Okay, so while you were talking, obviously you were on camera and I was not. So while I was not on camera, I was making a face. So now that I'm on camera, I'm going to show everybody the face I was making. Okay, that's the face I'm making. Hybrid. Stop it. Now, I will say this. I like Boston Scott. He is built and plays in the mold of Darren Sproles in his prime. That is a good thing to have on your team. I love Miles Sanders. I think Miles Sanders could, in fact, and I am not an Eagles fan, so I hope I get a little credit from some of my friends who are for saying things like this. I think Miles Sanders has the ability to possibly be an Alvin Kamara type of back. Maybe I should have thought longer and came up with another name, but I'm telling you, Miles Sanders is a really good back and will get better and better and better. And I really like his skill set, and I think his future is bright. He's been on the team a couple of years now, but last year was the first time he actually got a chance to really get the number of carries necessary to be considered a bell cow, so to speak, type of back. And I don't really want to call him a bell cow yet, because I believe that that Doug Peterson is still kind of riding in the Andy Reid mold as far as running backs are concerned. So they're always going to try to keep a committee of some sort. But Miles Sanders is the numbers of carries that he's beginning to get looks like he's going to be the main focus of their run game. And he's a good receiver. He's good in space. Again, he has nowhere to go but up. He is a really great asset for the Philadelphia Eagles and should remain that way for quite a while.
I agree. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, I mean,
but this hybrid thing, excuse me, I'm sorry to cut you off. What does that mean? What
you might consider Boston Scott a hybrid running back, because they're going to bring him in like they did Sproles. Sproles was a hybrid. And he could play slot. He could be a running back. Of course, we knew he could do special teams and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay, so you want to build a team. They want to build a team of hybrids. That's what the notion says.
That seems to be it. I mean, Corey Clement was kind of like a hybrid, because they used to, we saw him in college. He's between the tackles, right? And then the Eagles come out and then they make him the third down back. So they're putting him in all types of patterns and things of that nature, much less, his part in the whole Philly special thing. So in a way you could kind of say, these are backs, but that's most backs now that's doing a lot of that. I mean, you might have a few that they're pretty much just going to hand the ball off to. But you need a back now that's a bit of a receiver and a bit of a running back.
If you're going to be an NFL running back nowadays, you either have to be Derrick Henry or you have to really be good catching the ball and getting out into space. And I'm not saying so good that they can line you up at receiver. I'm just saying you have to be a threat to catch the ball, to catch a check down, to catch a swing pass and get yards after the catch. And you're going to see there's a lot more of those kind of guys than they are Derrick Henry kind of guys. Saquon. Well, Kamara's not I'm talking about guys that can go between the tackles, get outside, and catch the ball and get yardage in space. So Hilaire, who just got drafted by the Chiefs, is going to try to fill that role and should do well with that. In fact, he'll probably be starting over Damian Williams after game 4. But again, they like to use the committee thing. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now. But my thing is, the best backs in the league are going to be backs that can do both things. I don't consider that necessarily to be a hybrid. I really don't.
How would you define hybrid then?
I would define hybrid like you said. A Boston Scott is a hybrid because you can play him anywhere and he can return kicks. You know what I mean? He can legitimately play wide receiver. He can legitimately run between the tackles, and he can legitimately get outside, and he can catch swing passes and get yardage in space. He can do all those things. That makes him a hybrid. A normal, really good number 1 NFL running back needs to be able to catch the ball at least, on top of being a good running back. To me, that comes with the territory. And if you can't, then you better be grinding out 4.5 yards per carry week after week after week after week after week. Plus. And there's not a lot of guys that can do that.
Yeah. Derrick Henry was the name I was trying to think of, and you spoke it right up there.
Yeah, and even they even pushed him to improve his hands.
Mm.
And look what kind of seasons he's cranked out these last 2 seasons since he learned how to catch. They didn't throw him the ball at Alabama. They just pounded him. He learned how to catch the ball and get around in space. And I don't know where that stiff arm came from, but we could do a whole show on Derrick Henry. But you know what I'm saying? I don't care how good you are. You know who's the best? Or I'll say one of the best. Zeke Elliott and Christian McCaffrey. And although I think Christian McCaffrey is probably the number one back, and his stats prove it right now, I'm talking about since the last season. But I would put Zeke Elliott above him a little bit because Zeke can get the tough yards, the really tough yards that McCaffrey just can't get because of his size. But what McCaffrey misses in size, he makes up for in speed. So when you look at their statistics, you will see McCaffrey is right there with him, and he basically blows away every other NFL running back when it comes to targets, receptions, receiving yardage, and receiving touchdowns. He crushes them.
McCaffrey is a bad boy, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. All right, moving right along. The NFL, Ben, tried to bribe the owners to improve their performance relative to the Rooney Rule.
Bribe, you say?
Yeah, they were going to give them incentives. I'm not sure where it stands right now. They wanted the team to interview at least 2 external minorities, relative to coaching. I think now with everything that's happened, they actually are trying to do a little bit more than that. But I did want to mention that before it happened, now this was May 19th that this was posted. They were still dealing with the fact that that the amount of coaching, general managers, and upper level executives did not reflect the percentage of players. Where in the NFL, about 70% are African American, or at least minorities.
At least.
And then when you get to the coaches, you've got a handful out of 32. And then as you move up into general managers and above, then that, the color line changes completely. So the NFL now is a little more conscious. We'll have to follow up and see how they do relative to making any changes. But I did want to just mention that real quick, that they were, they were at the point where they figured they were talking about giving them like extra draft picks or something of that nature to incentivize these owners to, provide equality, basically.
And not that there's anything wrong with incentives, but what does that tell you about the NFL owners as a whole? That they would come up with the Rooney Rule, which basically asked them to all agree to do something in good faith because there was such a disparity. And all they did was throw out good faith, bring people in, and interview them when they had no thought in mind of actually hiring them. They just simply wanted to make sure that they covered the stipulations of the rule. That's not good. I was about to say another word, but that's not good. Now, if they feel that they need to give incentives in order for them to actually give people, they're only going to hire the guy they want. And for whatever reasons that they use to determine who it is that they want, they're going to stick to that. And if they have an opportunity to hire a minority in a coaching position, and the guy fits some kind of criteria that's close enough to what it is that they're looking for as far as keeping their team successful, I'm sure they'll do that. Okay. Anthony Lynn is a good head coach. Anthony Lynn is not a slouch. The guy down in Miami who was coaching the Denver Broncos and got fired, Flores, I think he's an outstanding head coach. And believe me, I'm not down there. I don't know. But from what I see and from what I hear from him and what I hear about him, I think these guys are outstanding head coaches and great choices. And I think their owners are very happy with them. And there's more guys out there. They just have to get a chance. What I'd like to see is I'd like to see a lot more minority position coaches. And there's probably a decent number of them right now, but there could be more. But you may have heard talk of like a pipeline. In order to get more, and I'll say it, forget minority. In order to get more black offensive and defensive coordinators, you have to start with more black position coaches, because that's usually where your coordinators come from. Your coordinators are usually either a well-respected and well-known and well-versed position coach who gets a promotion, or a head coach that got fired that used to be a coordinator before he was a head coach. If you look at every team's roster, that's what you're going to find. But there's only so many, because there's not a lot of black head coaches, you're not going to get but so much of that. And the guys that were head coaches that were black and got fired are all coordinators now. So
what about the college level? Because in the last 2 years, you've had the NFL step right past whoever's in the NFL and go pull their head coach straight from the college ranks. Cliff Kingsbury being one, and now the new coach for the Panthers.
Oh, Matt Rule,
yeah. And, you know, Matt Rule at least had a history of improving every program that he pretty much went to. The thing that Cliff Kingsbury had going for him was probably that he was considered innovative, young, innovative type guy. And I think they were kind of looking at the Rams head coach and thinking we could get a Rams style young guy to come in, you know, with some energy. And it didn't hurt that at the same time you had a quarterback who was available who could run that offense that he wanted to run in terms of the air raid. And him able to bring in Kyler Murray. So, you know, the NFL has a long way to go, obviously, but everybody's a little more woke now than they were due to the George Floyd killing and the mass protests. And the fact that now NFL players are really standing up, really speaking out, and not just NFL players. There's a whole story now with what is it, Oklahoma's coach wearing a T-shirt that represented a far right TV show.
Oklahoma State.
And his running back, who ironically is from Canada, an African American running back, spoke out against it, and he wound up, you know, apologizing. It's really hilarious that these guys act like he's wearing a T-shirt of a show of a station that he acts like he didn't know the things that they were saying on the station, but you're wearing a T-shirt, right? So, you know, there was a question about the authenticity there. But my point is that across the board, athletes are beginning to speak out and to you know, to stand up against what's going on. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But as a result now, you know, everyone is re-examining their practices. So in a way, that's a good thing.
I agree.
And that is Edgerrin James' hair. Apparently, according to the article, after being tackled by his hair during the Colts 2003 season, he cut it off, and it's now in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Wow. So my
Adrian
only
James
question,
was a beast, first of all. Let's just say Adrian James was a beast. We both enjoyed watching Adrian James as a running back, no doubt about it.
right? That I mean, I was going to say, well, when is he going to be allowed to join his hair in the Hall of Fame? We're going to have to do a show on guys that aren't in that we think should be.
And maybe we can do a show on guys who have stuff in the NFL Hall of Fame, but they aren't.
Or guys who have stuff in the NFL Hall of Fame that have no chance to ever get in.
Ooh, that's taking it another shot, you know. But I mean, I'm thinking about what Nick Foles, his jersey or something like that is in the
Yeah, like
Hall
I
of
said,
Fame.
guys that'll never ever get in. That's exactly. It's funny you should say that because that's exactly who I had in mind.
Is that exactly who you had in mind? Oh my goodness! That yeah. What can I tell you? Ben, speaking of running backs, just wanted to mention again that you and I, as long as we have known each other, we did not know that that our favorite football player
kicks or catching a pass. He was a threat to go all the way.
was this gentleman right here, Mr. Gale Sayers.
Yes, that is true. We have been friends and were friends for quite a while before we actually came to that conclusion. I don't even know what brought it up. It was probably one of those conversations we were talking about, you know, who you think is the best this, who you think is the best that, who's your favorite, who'd you love to see, Yes, Gale Sayers, absolutely.
I actually think it had something to do with the show, if I remember correctly, that we maybe, you know,
Now, I think we knew it before that.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so, because I remember having a discussion, the numbers that we wore in high school or something, and I think I said something about wearing number 40, and then I switched to number 20 because I like Leroy Keys too. But I first had 40 because of Gale Sayers.
Wow. That was a recent birthday that we had. Want to mention real quick that we also did participate in the blackout. So here's our blackout page that we had. We did participate in that. And that's what, on June 2nd?
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about how the NFL players are beginning to exercise their right to speak out. Do you have anything relative to Mr. Johnny Majors, rest his soul? Again, being more of a college guy than I am.
I remember Johnny Majors. I was much younger then and probably not as into college football as I am now. But during Tennessee's heyday, Johnny Majors was the coach there. I believe he also coached another team at the D1 level, but I can't quite remember exactly what team that was. But Johnny Majors was a big-time college coach and led Tennessee during some of their better years in D1.
Okay. Again, you know, you're much more of a college aficionado relative to that than I am, and I just wanted to have an opportunity to pay homage to, you know, who was obviously a great football coach. And again, rest in peace, Johnny Majors. Also, we like to share anytime somebody in the NFL does something good, and your Giants. Nobody can say it's not rocket science relative to the Giants, because Eric Smith and Chris Peace both completed internships with NASA. So you do have a couple rocket scientists or something close to that anyway on
I
your
think
team.
that's magnificent. It's even better because they're giants. But regardless of the team that they're on, here's a couple of guys that could have done anything they wanted with their NFL careers and their money and getting the business and this and that and the other. And they took the time to pass through NASA and become rocket scientists. I mean, we hear a lot about guys who come out early and go back and get their degrees, or guys that promise their mother, you know, I'm going to go back and get my degree. Some of them do and some of them don't. But this is another level. We're talking about NASA. Okay. I can't remember the guy's name. He plays for the Ravens. He was like a mathematician. I love hearing stories like that. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, there was one guy last year who was an MD. And the controversy is they wouldn't let him put MD on his jersey.
Okay, so you got guys putting the second, the third, the fourth, junior, and senior on their jerseys, but he couldn't get MD.
Couldn't get the MD.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
But you know what'll happen? If they let him do that, then guys are going to want their PhD. Everybody's going to have their BA.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody's name is going to end in BA. Nah, that's too much. We're going too far.
I mean, you know, if that's what they would want to do, I don't know if I would be mad at them if they want to put their letters after their name. I mean,
put on their sleeve. You put it right there on your sleeve. Okay. I mean, let's face it. It's not like it's not something to be proud of.
Maybe we'll do a poll of our followers and see who would like to see their professional designations on their NFL jerseys and things of that nature. I mean, I got like 4 degrees and about 3 certifications. I don't think there'd be room on my jersey. I'd look like one of those 10-star generals with all the crap hanging off of them.
You got to get a T-shirt made. You got to get a T-shirt made, bro. Just list them. Just put them on. You seen these people with the T-shirts that have their kids' names on them and things like that? Just list your stuff, man.
I saw a T-shirt on social media, and it starts at the top. It says, "What part of?" Then it's got all this scientific stuff on it. Then at the bottom it says, "Don't you understand?"
Exactly. So you get something with all your degrees on it, and people are going to be going, "Oh, what are you trying to act like you smart or something?" You're like, "No, I actually am." I'm not trying to be anything. I actually am.
I actually am. Okay. We talked about Johnny Majors as a coach that you might remember from college. Here's a coach who went to one of the schools that I attended, Florida A&M. Go FAMU. Ken Riley passed at the age of 72. Also played in the NFL. Any memories of Ken Riley?
I was going to say I remember Ken Riley as a player. I think I don't remember him as a FAMU coach. But that's great. That's
I'm trying to wonder when he was there. I mean, I was there. It was like 73 when I was there. I don't think he was there then. I forget who the coach was. The main person I remember coming out of FAMU as a football player went on to be a punter with the Vikings. And there was a brother, and the main thing about him, he used to wear this knitted cap, and it dropped all the way down his back. It like had a ball, but it was like really long. And it would hang all the way down his back with the ball at the end, which looked really weird in Florida.
I would imagine so. Yeah. Any kind of knit cap.
Right, a knitted cap. It probably fit well in Minnesota. However, if I had, they probably pull that thing over top of his head there or something, because it's cold in Minnesota. But yeah. So I did want to just kind of quickly mention that, and Ken Riley, rest in peace there. All right. We talked again about NFL players speaking out. And in this particular case, what we're looking at are two NFL college players who spoke out going back to their college relative to have, as it says here, spearheading support for the removal of John C. Calhoun's name from Clemson's Honors College. Apparently, he was a slave owner, and they felt like he should not be there. And they, from what I understand, they actually followed through and removed that. So there's a lot of that happening nowadays with Confederate statues. There's even a whole thing now with the Christopher Columbus statues relative to, being a little more truthful about some of what really happened back in those days. So again, I'm saying that the NFL players are feeling much more empowered than they did, especially when you compare going back to like what happened with Colin Kaepernick. I mean, it wasn't like, NFL players like boycotted the NFL on his behalf or anything like that. Even Richard Sherman, I think, still struggles to kind of explain what happened and not, blame anybody for not doing it at that time. But he looks very uncomfortable when he talks about that. So
it's funny that you mentioned Richard Sherman's name. I think Richard Sherman is one of those guys who gets easily frustrated when things that seem to be real simple to him are difficult for other people. That's the kind of guy he strikes me as. He's a pretty intelligent guy. He's a pretty worldly guy. And
Stanford.
Yeah, he went to Stanford, absolutely. And as what's his face will tell you, he's very proud of his Stanford degree. And sometimes he seems to get frustrated when people misconstrue things that he said or don't quite show the type of understanding that he believes they should have. And he's speaking as clearly as he possibly can. So yeah, he's got to keep a cool head when it comes to things like that. It's funny when you talk about players speaking out, and we have DeAndre Hopkins and Deshaun Watson, who played at Clemson. Now, Clemson University for the last few years has been at the top of the pile along with the LSUs and the Alabamas and the other SEC schools. What stands out about Clemson is they've been able to ball with the SEC, who is obviously and without a doubt the top conference in Division I, but Clemson is not in the SEC. Clemson's actually in the ACC, and they dominate the ACC. So, but they have an SEC type program and have had that type of success. Their coach has gotten a lot of accolades. They're very Christian-like in their beliefs and the way that they run their program. They recruit heavily using Christian type. I don't want to say beliefs, but you get what I'm saying, right? If they know a kid's a top flight athlete coming out of high school, and they find out that your mom goes to church, you're high on their list. Let me put it to you that way. Where in the past, some college teams say, I'll just use University of Miami, for example, went after and recruited high school players that had checkered pasts or problems with law enforcement in there, but they could really play. They weren't ashamed to go after them. Well, Clemson's like the opposite. They're not ashamed to go after, kids that are saved, evangelical, very strong in their Christian beliefs. But then you get two of the biggest names coming out of Clemson in DeAndre Hopkins and Deshaun Watson, kind of being critical about things that are going on in Clemson and asking for that name to be removed from one of the major buildings on the campus. And Clemson is in South Carolina, for those of you who don't know. So, you know, that's Deep South. That's strong Confederate ties and all that. And they obviously knew about this while they were there, but probably didn't feel like they had the voice to say something like that then, but now they do.
Things have changed. Things have changed. All right. One of my favorite YouTube guys is our man Flemlo from Flemlo Raps. And the reason that I put this one up is because it was interesting. He was kind of going through the same thing we were going through when between the COVID and the George Floyd and so much was happening that it was a bit overwhelming, and it just didn't seem like getting a video out was that important for the time being.
Right.
And I had to give it to him. I mean, he's a young guy, but he's just very mature in terms of a lot of things that he says. And he just admitted to it. He was like, look, you know, and it takes a minute to kind of get your head back on track in terms of what you're doing. And again, for us, you know, having not recorded since May, it's now June 19th. We normally go week to week. So, you know, and much less the fact that there's no football. I mean, there's no real camp going on that we can see. I guess they have virtual camp. They're having virtual meetings. And so,
yeah,
you know, all of that type of stuff is going on. But nobody's hitting each other. You know, there's no none of that kind of stuff. And, you know, we be seeing something of that nature at this particular point. So I just wanted to throw it out there. Shout out to Flemlo. Keep up the good work. Does a lot of good work as he really looks at the life of the different players and really goes through their story. And I like that about what he does. Okay, so we always like to talk about, you know, when our NFL players do something good. And I didn't know this, Ben. You probably knew this, but I didn't know that Warrick Dunn was a part owner of the Falcons.
I did not know that. That's fabulous. That's awesome, man.
If you'll notice in the link, the date in the link is like 2009. So I don't know where we've been. That had to be one of the quietest NFL add-ons. I mean, it was in the papers, but I did not know that.
Okay, now, I did not read that article. And obviously, at least, you know, as far as national news goes, that wasn't considered that big a deal, or I probably would have known about it. I would hope I would have known about that. I'm going to assume that he's a minority owner, but still, he's part owner of an NFL franchise, man. That's huge.
That is huge. And the other part, you know, what we do know about Warrick Dunn is that he builds homes for people.
Absolutely, and gives them away. He builds homes for underprivileged single mothers and their families, and presents them and has a big ribbon cutting and the whole 9 yards, man. He does it up big for them. And he's been doing this for years. He was doing it when he was still playing and has continued to do it since he's retired. Warrick Dunn, that guy should go in the Hall of Fame they need a humanitarian wing, okay? Because that brother is awesome.
I wanted to make sure of this before I actually said anything, but part of his story in the building of homes was that he built one for Deshaun Watson's family.
I heard that. Yes.
You know? So, I mean, that's generational right there. So, your point about Hall of Fame, very interesting point there. I mean, Warwick Dunn was an amazing guy. Okay. Moving right along then. So, today being June 19th, man, we talked about the NFL being much more woke. It is now an NFL holiday. Juneteenth is now an NFL holiday. Who would have thunk it?
So NFL makes Juneteenth a company-wide holiday. All right. So if training camp was in fact going on, then everybody would be off today and still get paid, right?
That's what you normally get when you get a holiday. Now, he didn't say it was a paid holiday, but he did say it was a holiday. And you got to remember, you know, you've got the NFL as an organization, but then you have all of the separate teams. So if I understand, the teams are adopting this to a large degree. I don't know if it's 100%.
That's cool. Again, when you're running a company and between 70 and 80% of the players are African American, I mean, my goodness, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? This makes me think back to when they actually had a debate about whether or not to make Martin Luther King's birthday a holiday. I'm like, that's a no-brainer to me. But
I always said Martin Luther King was probably the most segregated holiday that we had, because a lot of black people took off from work,
anyway,
and a lot of white people didn't.
I was one of them. I took a vacation day.
Did you really?
I scheduled a vacation day and I took it off for some years, yes. And I mean, the other people didn't because it wasn't a real holiday. So, and again, like I said, there was controversy. So we thought it should be a holiday. Like I said, I thought it was a no-brainer. It was not officially a holiday. So I said, I feel so strongly that it should be a holiday that I'm going to make it a holiday for me, and I will use my own time and take this day off. I will not come to work on this day because this day rightfully should be a holiday. Yes, I did that.
Okay. I used to work. Well, first of all, you had a certain number of people that could be off. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to work and I'm going to make money, because I used to always say they didn't kill Martin Luther King until he started talking economics.
Right.
And I was like, no, we're going to have to stop this. So,
yeah,
you know, so that was sort of my way of honoring him, you know, and working, you know, at the same time. So it wasn't so much a matter of vacation time. Sometimes it was, you couldn't get the day off anyway because it wasn't an actual holiday. But that was kind of my thinking about that. All right, moving right along. I want to just skip through a couple posts on the page that sort of are in the same realm. We talked about what's going on with the owners. Well, we have an owner here, one of the Titans owners, who supported the peaceful protest. So, you know, it's nice to hear an owner speak out in support of those peaceful protests. We have Pete Carroll saying he regrets not signing Colin Kaepernick. And we have Texans coach O'Brien saying he's going to take a knee with his players. That ought to be some real fun stuff to see, especially relative to any pushback that they get from the president, who is still sticking to his guns relative to the knee thing. So, and I don't know if you know this, but I think I posted this also. There was a soccer game where every one of the soccer players took a knee. All of them.
recently.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And I guess they were like, and it was funny because when I first saw it, you couldn't really see everybody because I guess they were in their soccer positions on the field when they took the knee. And you know how big a soccer field is. Like you
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got
couldn't
you.
see everybody, but I could see maybe one or two people or something like that. So yeah, big changes happening in the NFL, man, and across the board. We have to just take full advantage of that. Your boy AB pled no contest to those felony burglary charges. And because he had money, it looks as if he basically is not going to spend a day in jail. He's going to get he's got all types of leniency on that. And unless the NFL hits him with some types of punishment areas, you could have AB playing by September.
Okay, so let me real quick say something about that because I read the whole. In fact, I looked at that. He's got community service he's got to do and probations and this, that, and the other. He's got mandatory anger management, blah, blah, blah. He'll breeze through all that stuff. I would be shocked if the NFL doesn't hit him with something, which they have every right to do. So I would say that if he keeps his head low, which he has done, he could be back, but I don't know about September.
So you think he's going to get at least a little something, maybe?
Yeah, they're going to throw something on him. Yeah, they have to. Yeah, they have to. I don't know what it'll be, but they've had plenty of time to think it over, and I think they got something in their back pocket that they're ready to pull out when the time comes. But he's got to do all this community service and go to all these meetings and all that other stuff. That might not jive too well with being on an NFL roster anyway. Because they're in and out of town all the time. He's going to have to navigate that. I'm not sure. In fact, I'm sure there's some teams that wouldn't want to be bothered with all that they would rather wait until he gets deep into that and almost through it before they bring him into play. But, he can't slough that stuff off. He's put himself in a position where if he spits on the sidewalk, I don't care how much money he's got. You know what I mean? When you say no contest, to me, that's like saying you're guilty without saying you're guilty. That's like, did you do it or you didn't? I mean, I can't say I didn't. That's what no contest means to me. So he's lucky that he didn't have to do any jail time, but they've stacked up so many hours of stuff that he has to commit to and complete and prove that he's completed. You don't just say you got 2,000 hours of community service and you go, okay, whatever. You got to do that and you got to report into somebody. So, he's got to complete these classes. When you go to these classes, at the end, they give you a certificate. They take roll. You got to do that. You can't get out of that. So he's got his hands full right now. But again, if he keeps quiet, keeps his head down, does what he's supposed to do, when he comes back, whatever the NFL slaps on him, they could be lenient, but they're going to hit him with something.
Okay. All right. Next up, I don't know if you had a chance to look at this, but I had to share this. Apparently, Vince Lombardi put out a teaching football video, and you see what it was called? Vince Lombardi on football.
That almost rhymes with Ben and Barry on football.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, did I hear that in my subconscious someplace? And that's why we came up with
Oh, look at that power sweep. Oh,
yeah. Because he says in the video, he says every team has or should have a go-to play.
Yep.
And that was their go-to play. I don't care if you know it's coming, you know it's going to come, but it's coming at some point, and especially when we need those few yards. And some of the techniques that he taught might not be quite kosher today, because he was like, aim your head right there at his face mask.
Right.
But it was more about positioning. He wasn't trying to tell you necessarily hit him in the face, but he was like, if you want, start here and then you're going to lean in on this side or lean in on that side, and all of that. But yeah, if you anyone out there is a Packer fan or a Lombardi fan or just a real serious football fan, you'll probably really enjoy watching this video that we shared on Ben and Barry. And so as you can see, he's there and he's coaching, and then, like what you just saw just now is he showed it on the practice field, then he showed the video in the game.
Right.
And so yeah, did you ever copy his famous first day of practice, hold up the ball and go, gentlemen, this is a football?
No.
You didn't do that one?
That's like John Wooden teaching his guys how to tie their sneakers and how to put their socks on right.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
We put our socks on a certain way here at UCLA. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it.
No, absolutely. I mean, hey, look, when you win as much as he did, whatever you say, we got to listen to.
Hey, again, we could do 2 whole shows. I always say we could do a whole show on something. We could do 2 whole shows on the difference between athletes then and athletes now.
Well, okay. You said it, so we'll have to seriously consider that. That's a good possibility. Ezekiel Elliott had a nice little party a little while back during the COVID-19 pandemic, and now he and some Texans players have tested, as well as several Cowboys fans have tested positive. So we didn't think it was smart when he did it.
Wait a minute. He gave the party?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was one of those parties where they had like open trays of food all over the place. Of course, nobody had masks on. Of course, there was no social distancing, none of that kind of stuff. The only thing is, these guys are pretty healthy. So for many of them, the symptoms are not severe, But in order to get this season underway with practices and things of that nature, they have to test. One of our shows, we actually talked about that being a great model for corporate America, that they would test their employees, because you quarantine healthy people, you isolate infected people. The only way you know the difference is by testing them. So, they're doing that now in the NFL. They're finding out who's positive, who's not, and going through the appropriate protocols for that. But yeah, he threw that party, and we don't know if he caught it then, because you just don't know. It could have happened any time. But there's a lot of people who are positive, don't know it, and so, you just have to be that much more careful. On our next topic, Ben, I actually thought about you because I know you were a big fan of this young lady.
Jemele, my girl.
And, it was funny. I watched this video, and I remember, when she started speaking out against the president, it really began to create some angst for ESPN. And then next thing we knew, she was gone. And I didn't know how much she was being victimized. But when you watch the video, number one, they paid out her contract. So she kind of walked away like Kaepernick. She walked away with some money. And she was saying that the entire time she was actually really thinking about leaving anyway. It was in her heart. So it's a great story. If you get a chance, check out Jemele Hill. She's still current, still busy, still outspoken. She's got her own podcast now, as well as, now being, she's being interviewed here on this Vlad TV. Not real familiar with them, but there's at least 8 parts to this video series on YouTube. So you get an opportunity to actually check out Jemele, and I want to get her on our show because I just like to hear her talk football. She's very knowledgeable. And my first question is, Jemele, who are you a fan? What team are you a fan of? That's what I want to know.
Oh, and you know what? She has spoken on that. She hasn't been on anything in such a long time that I really cannot remember. But she was pretty outspoken about her fandom of a team or two in sports. And I cannot remember. I don't want to speculate. For some reason, Detroit is in my mind, but I'm not gonna say that. But yeah,
I think she's from Detroit.
Okay, I think she was like a bad boy Piston fan. I think she was big on them. I don't know about football teams, but I love Jemele. I think she fell prey to the fact that after Trump became president and started doing things that made the news in a negative light for a lot of people, there weren't many people in sports speaking out about much at all when it came to social injustice or things of that nature. So she was a bit of an anomaly at that time. There were other people thinking it. There were other people maybe talking about it amongst themselves, but nobody with the type of platform that she had at ESPN was coming out with like hardcore stuff the way she did. So I think she kind of had to fall on her sword for everybody who now everybody and their grandmother's got something to say. You know what I mean? But she was the forerunner of that. So these guys that are out here now, these NBA players like Kyrie Irving, and I don't want to get too deep into that, who are like, all of a sudden everybody's going through all these machinations to try to get the NBA back on, and they just about got everything squared away. And then he goes, oh, I don't know if I want to play anyway now because, there's more important things out there than playing basketball. Dude, that's your job, first of all. Second of all, what are you going to do? You going to fly around the country and go to every Black Lives Matter protest you can find? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? There's a WNBA player who said that she was not playing this year. And the WNBA is going to be starting soon. She told everybody ahead of time, I'm not playing because I got stuff to do with the movement. But she's actually doing stuff. She's going to meetings. She's going to protests. She's giving speeches. She's giving money. She's doing a lot of stuff. Her last name is Montgomery. I want to say her name is Renee Montgomery, if you want to look her up real quick, if I got that name right. She said, I'm locked in. Like, I'm doing this. This is what's going on right now, and I'm in it. And I'm not going to have time to play ball because all my time is going to be taken up with this movement. That's real. That's real. Now, until I hear Kyrie Irving say that's what he's going to do, then I got a question like, why are you trying to, quote unquote, mess it up for everybody else? And that might be not a nice way to put it, okay? But then you got a guy like Patrick Beverly who simply says, if LeBron's balling, we balling. So, you know what I mean? I would say the majority of the players are feeling that way. Not necessarily about, if LeBron's doing it, but they're ready to play, especially the younger guys.
just pulling up a quick search, I'm saying multiple names. Maya Moore,
Yes,
Cecilia,
yes. Maya
Vanna
Moore did the same
Bassini,
thing.
and Renee Montgomery.
Yes, Maya Moore said it before the rest of them. Maya Moore is like, nah, I'm not playing this year. COVID
Wow.
or no COVID, I got stuff to do. Like, they're out there. They're in the trenches. They've already committed to stuff. They're not sitting at home going, should I play? I don't really feel like playing. So I'm just going to say, oh, there's so much happening in the world. Who can think about the NBA? That's just a distraction. No, they didn't say that. They didn't say, I'm not going to play because I don't want to take away from the struggle. I don't want to take away from what's happening out here now. They're like, no, I'm not going to play because I'm in it. I'm doing stuff. You know what I mean? I'm committed. There's a big difference.
Well, you know, it's interesting in light of the next thing that I wanted to share, which is Malcolm Jenkins being hired by CNN as a commentator. So he's still playing if they play, but he's got a little second gig now, and you know he's been outspoken as a member of the Players Association or coalition rather, Players Coalition with the NFL. One of the people who spearheaded that. So I did want to throw that out there as a congratulations to Malcolm Jenkins on that. Also, I wanted to mention that, you know, we talked a lot about whether Kaepernick wanted to play or not. And now it seems as if Kaepernick, like the attitude has softened toward him. They're talking, different teams now are talking about potentially bringing him in. Chargers being one of the more teams that have recently talked about it. And my question, you know, back then was, does he really want to play? That was the question. Now, we want him to play. We'd love to see him play, but we weren't sure if he wanted to play. And then as soon as this happens where everybody's talking about bringing him back, he joins a company called Media, and they're supposed to be putting out video content. So he's just picked up a whole nother responsibility and a job right around the time when, you know, that world is, the NFL is saying, yeah, you know, we potentially would want to bring you back. So keep an eye out for what happens there. Before I move on to anything else, anything you want to say on that?
Personally, I think that whole thing before, when they said they were going to work him out, I think that was a bit of a 52 fake out, so to speak. But it did kind of open up the question as to whether he really wanted to play or not. It's kind of like they were trying to figure out, did he really want to play or not, by saying, we're going to make it somewhat difficult and see if he's willing to go along with all the roadblocks we put in his way. And that way we'll be able to tell how serious he is. And up to that point, and even before they even began to talk about those workouts, that he ended up actually working out somewhere other than where he was originally scheduled to work out, and for only 8 teams as opposed to all 32 teams. All that time and before that, all he was doing was putting up workout videos and showing people, I can still run, I can still throw, my arm is right, I'm accurate, I'm working out every day, I'm in the gym, boom, bang, boom. And now, when things have softened and have really, really softened, because the owners were afraid of all along, the guy in the White House actually said, oh yeah, if he can still play, he should be allowed to play. The gloves are completely off now. You know what I mean? Before they kind of had to fake like, yeah, we don't have a problem with him, but he's got to be able to play and this and that. But in the back of their minds, it's like, I don't want that dude on my team because I don't want this guy that I contribute my money to and who does favors for me. I don't want any backlash. Now, it's all good. Where's my workout videos? Where it's COVID. You can get almost any receiver, any NFL receiver you want to meet you somewhere and throw passes to them. They're not in camp. They're all working out anyway. Tom Brady got his whole receiving corps working out down Florida. What's the problem? Now, that doesn't mean it's not happening, but I haven't seen or heard of it. And like you said, now he's got a new job all of a sudden. So the question again arises, does he really want to play? Let's see what happens when somebody gives him a phone call and says, dude, come on in and work out. I bet you $1 to a donut, he won't want to work out.
$1 to a donut.
$1 to a donut, he won't want to do individual workouts. He'll want to do that whole big media hype thing again. Watch and see. And if he proves me wrong, that's great. Because I think he can still play. Every time I see Mike Glennon get a job and get an NFL play, stop it. Blaine Gabbert, stop it. Come on now.
The only thing I think that concerned me was his ability to focus. If with everything that's going on with the whole movement of awareness in the United States about civil rights and things, is he going to be able to come in to anybody's team and be really focused on the game? Like
as long as he's got Twitter, he should be all right.
Well, he's got, Twitter, Facebook, he's got all of that. But he's going to have that playbook down. He's going to have to be able to go out there and really know what's going on. And, we know what type of focus that takes, especially at the quarterback. I mean, Malcolm Jenkins can probably, be on CNN and work with them a little bit here and there as a D-back, but he's been around a long time. He's not the quarterback of the team.
Well, he knows how to manage his time. What's going to take is he's going to need to know how to manage his time. I wouldn't want him to say, okay, I'm back in the NFL now, so I got to drop everything else. If you got things to say and you have things to do and you're part of an organization and you got to put out videos now and then, you're going to have to tailor it to your real job, which will be an NFL football player. But you'll learn how to manage
it's that now and then that you mentioned that I don't, when you're in a media production company, you don't put out videos now and then. There's usually a schedule. And you and I know what it takes just to get this little thing off the air. You think you're going to start recording at, one time and then, something goes on. Next thing you know, it's an hour or two later and you're just getting to it. So it'll be interesting to see, him do that. Again, both you and I would love to see what he can do in an NFL uniform. Even the Eagles are talking about potentially bringing him in, So, and we did mention, and I'll reiterate, the state of play in the NFL now with the way they're protecting quarterbacks and the way they're so concerned about safety. Quarterbacks can get away with playing a lot longer and staying a lot healthier. So, he could probably come back in, and do pretty well under the new scenario. And, a lot more mobile quarterbacks. A lot of teams are looking for that mobile quarterback. The statue, there's only a few statues, real statues left. One is with the Colts now and Phillip Rivers. I don't know if we want to call Tom Brady a statue quite yet, but obviously he's with the Bucks. But a lot of the other teams all have quarterbacks who are somewhat mobile, and they're moving toward that. So that being said, Unless you have something more to say, we will move right along on that. And again, all the best. We want all the best. All right, this was kind of funny. I thought that this was funny because we actually have a word for effing up, and it's called Trubiskying it up. And so one of their coaches actually said, we walk around with a little bit of swagger to ourselves in terms of knowing we're the best quarterback room in the NFL. That would be Trubisky and Foles. How in the heck did he put his lips together to say that in today's time?
Let me just say this so that I can make sure that the camera is on me, because I was making that face again. A little bit more exaggerated this time. Are you serious? You know who he's talking to? He's talking to Chicago Bear fans, and he's talking to Trubisky and Foles. And nobody else. Because nobody else in the NFL in their right mind believes that. In fact, they're probably rolling on the floor laughing about it right now. Are you kidding me? But this is a guy that was on the Eagles coaching staff when they won the Super Bowl, is he not? Frank Reich, who is now the head coach of the Colts, and this guy DiFilippo were on there. And they had Nick Foles, and they saw the magic. You know what I mean? They got Super Bowl rings, all right? And he thinks that that gives him leverage to say something like this. Trubisky, oh, geez, I don't know. First of all, he hasn't shown me anything that warrants how high he was drafted, first of all. He owes Deshaun Watson part of his salary, if you ask me. But besides that, at this point, I haven't even seen, what they saw in him when they picked him that high. It hasn't come to fruition. He may not have been right away, first year, rookie year, second year, what they expected of him. But by now, I should have seen more than flashes, okay? It's questionable to me whether this guy is going to be a successful long-term NFL quarterback. It really, really is, Nick Foles is what he is. He has never been a successful starting quarterback in this league. He has never started and played an entire season. Ever. Look him up. Ever.
His first year with Chip, he didn't play the full season because
Michael
he
Vick.
came in to replace Vic, so he missed out on the full season. But that was a pretty successful season, and that's what everybody points to.
I said a full 16-game season. Give me 14 games. He didn't play 14 games. All right? Yet in his career. But for that little window, he got hot. Team got hot. Everything fell into place. I can't say anything bad. It happened for him.
Good relief pitcher. That's what I always said.
And I think that's all he'll ever be. But he's good enough to beat Trubisky out. And if, in fact, he does, and he stays healthy, we may see the first full season from Nick Foles. And then we'll judge him from there.
Do you think DiFilippo, now that you've mentioned his relationship to the Eagles, is looking at his combination of Trubisky and Foles as being somewhat like Wentz and Foles?
Oh, my God. That's an insult to Wentz.
Guy.
That's an insult to Wentz if he is. Remember, Wentz was having an MVP season when he first went down.
Yeah.
Okay? Trubisky hasn't had anything near that. So, yeah, I don't know what he's thinking.
He's still Trubiskying it up as it, We shall see. I've like you said, you see flashes, you see the athleticism, you see the arm strength. I did read an article that talked about some of the changes in the offense and some of the things that he had to go through that maybe did not help him. Maybe
Yeah, sure. I
he
mean,
tarted his growth
better pass blocking would help. That's probably gotten a little better, since the last draft. An improved running game would have helped. I'm not going to say he had it made and then just screwed it up, but you're number one pick, the second, third, fourth overall or something, wherever he came in, you got to do better than that.
All right. That pretty much wraps up our show. We normally like to go through our social media before we wrap this thing up. So Benny, I do want to mention again, Ben and Barry on football on Facebook at BNBOF. As I stated early on, I produced the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings and the Bias Plus Report. I didn't mention that, but yes, the Bias Plus Report is a direct offshoot of the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings. And as soon as the season starts, we'll have some points to calculate on. In addition, we have Ben and Barry on football on Instagram. So join us and share whatever you might have on Instagram. We are also on Twitter at BNB on Football. And if you go to www.benandbarryonfootball, you will go to our YouTube page where all of our videos are posted. So here you are. We've got video after video after video. We've been doing this now for a couple years, and we still are going strong and intend to go strong for a while now. So join us, go back, let us know about any of the videos. If you had some questions or some issues with anything that we said relative to football, let us know, because we just love talking about football. All right, Mr. Dickerson. That pretty much wraps up the show for today. Any last words?
I just want to say I really, really enjoyed doing this show. I wish we had more football content as far as like training camp type stuff and all that. I can't wait for that to start, because they're going to have Hard Knocks is coming back, which I always loved. And they're going to do two teams instead of one this time. They're going to do the Rams and the Chargers kind of at the same time. So I think that'll be interesting. But other than that, we've got a lot of things planned, a lot of other subject matter, since we've had to like really think about things that we want to talk about. So we're going to try to keep you guys informed. Hopefully you keep on watching. And after that, all I can say is go Noles.